Hello, welcome to today's video where I'm going to create my next junk journal with you guys. And I have to give a quick shout out to the person who actually inspired me to do this style of journal. She does have her own tutorial on her page, and I'm gonna leave her link below, but I do want to give a quick little peek here if we can. Tanya Samuels is her name. She is very talented. She has an Instagram page as well, which I'm going to pull up so that I can show that to you as well. The style we are making is going to be a wraparound journal, and mine's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to have an exposed spine, and I'm probably going to make it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. So literally, if you are wanting to recreate a journal like this, please go check out her tutorial because she has a really simple tutorial. It's easy to follow. The size that I'm working with is going to be 7 inches by 9. This is a lot bigger than anything that I've really worked in for a while. And then my spine is 3 inches. I think in her video she mentioned like that she's a little intimidated about 3-inch spines, yet she still, like, she could use that much space once she's done decorating a journal, something like that. She's really wonderful and she's so talented, guys. So please go check her out because I give her full credit for the inspiration. So I'm not trying to recreate her tutorial or anything like that, but I just want to show you how I came up with this. And then on top of that, I also got a request from one of my patrons to show my next journal, and it's Susan Pratt. So thank you, Susan, for the request for this video. Okay, here we go. So we have 7 inches by 9, and then both spines that I have here are 3 inches by 9. So since we're doing a wraparound journal, you're going to need what you would normally need for your cover, which would be the front cover, the spine, the back cover, but then you're going to need an additional spine that will be the same size as your middle spine, and you'll need the cover that's going to wrap around. And I loved her idea of having the rounded edge. Don't worry about all of my writing and scribbling here, that's going to be covered. And so I just love that. Now I also want my spine to have an exposed area, and so I'm going to take a little pen and mark where that will be. So I'm going to use my scoreboard, but you can just use a ruler if you want. And I want to leave, let's see, probably about 1 inch at the top. And I'm going to score this just so I can have straight lines. And then I think I want 1 inch at the bottom. And I don't want the full spine to be completely open in the middle. I want it to be more like a window, if that makes sense. And again, just to get straight lines, I'm going to score again about 1/4 inch in. And so I'm going to flip this around and then do that same thing. And I've had a lot of requests. I did a journal once that had an exposed edge, and I could have swore I did a tutorial on the exposed spine, but I could never find the video, so we'll try to find that as well. Okay, that looks a little crooked, but it's not going to be a big deal because once everything's covered, we're going to be just fine. So before we get started putting the rest of this together, I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. And so I'm literally just going to dig my scissors in here and cut this out. I can see that I did not do a very good job at making it equal on all sides. But obviously, if you don't want an exposed spine like I'm doing, then go ahead and skip this part. Now there's several ways you can go about the next step. You can either use some type of like masking tape to connect all of these pieces to make one long piece, or I like to go ahead and just attach them straight down to fabric. Again, I'm going to be referencing her video quite a bit, so I wanted to say that she uses some batting to make it super plush, and I wish I had some because I made one journal that way a long time ago and I loved how it felt, but I looked everywhere and I don't have any. Whoops. So I'm going to try to use, like, honestly just a few layers of fabric. So I'm going to lay these all back out and we'll just start gluing them right on down to the fabric to create one long piece. I am using my Tombow Mono Aqua Glue that I really use for everything. I am going to leave a little bit of a border around too, so that I can wrap it around for nice edges. And then this part, I will go ahead and cut out the window on the fabric at the end, because like I said, I'm gonna have a few layers, I think. And I'm using this random brown fabric just because it's not really going to show once we cover it with everything else that will be the final fabric look. I am leaving about 1/8 of an inch between each piece. Okay, so I will continue gluing all of this down. Okay, so now we have our one long piece, and we're gonna go ahead and just start gluing around the edges and just wrapping this fabric all the way around. And if I didn't mention, this journal is going to be a mostly undecorated journal, something that I never do, and I always wish that I did, just because it's for my own use, and I know that I'll want to decorate as I work in it. And so I think I may leave it also a traveler's notebook style, where you can take the signatures in and out of, but I haven't figured that out quite yet. But I'm gonna make little slits just at every little section here, just to help wrap it around nicer. So I will just continue gluing all of these edges, and this is just our first layer of fabric, since I'm gonna try to make it kind of plush. So just make sure you're wrapping it around really nice and tight to help with any bubbles or wrinkles in your fabric. So this is all glued around the edges now. I gotta point out one quick thing. I did not take my time on making sure that the front was smoothed out. So I do have a wrinkle here. If I were making this for someone else, I would honestly rip this out and smooth it out better. But it's just for me, and it's gonna get covered up. So I'm leaving that, but I did want to point it out. It may make the final cover look a little messy, but that's okay. Okay, now I have a second piece that I'm gonna go ahead and cover the inside with. I think it might actually be better to cut out the fabric now. So let's just do that real quick here. So I'm just gonna try to do this as neat as I can. So I'm gonna do real careful when I get closer to the edges here. You'll want to be sure, we're gonna wrap the fabric around since this is going to be showing. I'm gonna do it in several different sections. And I'm cutting almost all the way to the edge, but not quite. So I probably should have done diagonal. That actually would have been better, but I didn't do it. So let's see. So I'm gonna, wow. So take back what I said, and instead of doing a cross, you should try to cut a diagonal. That's gonna really help you be able to wrap everything around really nicely. So then I'm gonna wrap this all around, add little bits of glue to hold it in place, trim where I need to so that it's not hanging over the edges. Just continue with this. Okay, so we have all of it. It looks so messy now, but it's wrapped around, and so you can kind of get an idea. It's gonna look really cool once we have everything put together. There you go, kind of like that. Okay. And I am going to, again, messily, just because that's how I'm just rolling today. I'm going to start with this edge, and I'm going to glue this down. And yes, we will have to cut that hole out again, but that's okay. And this fabric does not exactly match all the way across, because I'm just working with some scraps. But that's okay, because there will be a final fabric panel that will be much prettier. So we're just gonna work with what we got. So I'm just gonna start little by little, and I'm going to glue onto each like little section. I have this glued all on the inside, and so now once again we need to go ahead and cut out this fabric right here. Cut up here. Now this fabric, I'm going to try my best to just completely cut out, not wrap it around or anything like that, because I don't want to wrap it around to the outside of the journal, if that makes sense. So I'm going to try to cut it even a little bit bigger than what the hole would be. And I probably should have done this before gluing everything down, but I like to just go for it. Then we can start covering this journal in my final fabrics. Okay, that sun's really starting to shine in, so I hope that this is all right. So first of all, let me show you kind of what we're working with here so you can see what the journal looks like when it's all put together. So the wraparound portion is, you know, the circular, and we'll add some kind of a closure when we get to that. But it's basically going to open up like this, like so. It's kind of hard to visualize, I feel like. But so you want to be mindful of what you're putting on the front flap, because that's really what you're going to see when the journal is closed. And so I'm going to flip it over like so. Now I'm just going to be using a mixture of fabrics. Okay, so this took me a long time to place all of the fabric where I wanted it. And I'll be honest, it's a little bit more collagey than I was hoping for. So I hope I like the final look. But the sun is glaring so bad. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm going to go through and just glue down each piece. When I'm done with that, I'll go through and we can sew it and we'll get back together. But I wanted to show you, I just have the pieces all laid on top. So I'm just going to go back through and glue them all down. So I'm about halfway done with gluing all these pieces down. Now I wanted to mention, if you do not plan to sew your pieces on, if you're collaging like this, which is totally fine, you don't have to sew them on, you'll want to make sure to use a really strong fabric glue. And there's quite a few out there. I don't use them often because I'm always sewing things on, but just be sure to do that. The other thing, you want to make sure that your fabric pieces are cut rather nice. Mine's a little messy and I realized, oh wait, that's all like visible. So just a few little things I'm realizing as I go along here. And then also remember, I cut everything much longer because we are going to wrap all of those pieces around the edge. I'm going to go ahead and trim any extra fabric off, like over here. There's a huge amount. You only need about like maybe ½ an inch or so. To be able to nicely wrap it around the edges. So just trim any excess off, and then you can start gluing all of the excess around the edges, just like we did with the last fabric that we used. And I am going to sew afterwards then. So I'm just going to tuck all of the fabric around the edges. I'm going to cut out the hole again for the spine. Make sure you're wrapping it around really good and tight this time. Okay, so most of it is wrapped around, and again I'm going to cut this fabric and wrap it around the edge of the spine, and then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and just sew all the way around and then all the way down each line of fabric. Alright, it is all sewn on now, and I did decide to go ahead and reinforce the spine area. And we're switching to voiceover because I was covering the mic. So as you can see here, I'm going to show you where I added that reinforced spine, and it's just essentially one more layer of the cardstock that's cut out to be the exact same size as my spine. And now I need to glue down some fabric to cover the inside and make it pretty. I have this vintage sheet, and I will go ahead and just cut it down to just a little bit bigger than the size I need. And I'm going to use my Tombow Mono Aqua Glue to glue it down. And I'm just going to follow what I do and glue it what am I trying to say? I'm going to glue it down section by section. And in the end, I wish I had actually sewn this on. I don't know why I didn't. I think I was just being lazy. Now I'm going to go ahead and also cut out the hole for the exposed spine. And this is something, again, that I could have actually just traced where the hole needed to be and cut it out much nicer. But I was kind of rushing towards the end because my little girl was about to wake up from her nap. And I wish I hadn't done that because, I mean, it's fine. But you're going to maybe be able to see that it's a little bit messy. Because I had that paper spine, or yeah, the paper spine on the inside now. You can see that, and it's just messy. It's fine though, because we can always cover anything up with lace. So I will now go ahead and add more glue to adhere that down over the spine area. Now, the reason I said I wish I had actually sewn this on is because if you see around the outer edges, it's there's a lot of bulk going on, and I can already tell that the inside fabric is coming up a little bit. So I think I might still be able to take it to my sewing machine and reinforce all around the edges. Anyways, now I'm going to go ahead and just add some lace. You can always cover up any mistake with lace, guys. And I'll add some lace at the top here just to make it a little prettier. Really, I'm going to be sewing my signatures in here, but I just wanted something to make me feel like it looked a little bit nicer. And then I'll go ahead and just take my scissors to trim around the edges. We're just about done with the cover. I hope that you guys will stick around with me and wait to see the final result. I love the final journal and I can't wait to share the next step with you. There is a part 2 where we will go over everything else to finalize the journal, and it seriously looks so cool. I can't wait to start working in it. I appreciate you guys so much, and thank you for my for this requested video by Susan Pratt. I appreciate y'all, and I hope you have a great night. Bye.